Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
Oh, boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. So let's chat about this today, sister. Most people are really shitty with boundaries. And, boundaries kind of becomes this word that's like, I don't know, therapy, technobabble shit. I hear women all the time talk about how their husbands are narcissistic. It's like, really? Is everybody's husband narcissistic? I think that seems to be like a therapy thing. But let's get into this conversation of boundaries. So boundaries are simply the agreements, the clear agreements, by the way. Because here's the thing with a boundary. The person needs to know, right? Or if the boundary is crossed, like it needs to be. Think of boundaries like, I don't even know if they sell them around, but like I can remember in farms and stuff, they'd have these electric fences, right? And so if any of like, say like cows or horses or whatever, sheep, farm animals venture off, that when they, touch the fence, it would give them like a little bit of an electric shock, right? And so there would be a boundary, a physical boundary that they couldn't go past, right? So think of boundaries in that respect, that there are times that you might even set up a boundary and it's crossed and it needs to be addressed. But let's define what the boundary is. The boundary says, hey, you know what? This is what I'm okay with. This is what, behavior I'm okay with. This is the kind of conversation I'm okay with. This is the way that, I need you to show up in relationship, like a boundary you might make with your husband or with your children. Lots of boundaries with kids, right? Or with friends or with family. See, it's interesting because when it comes to especially kids, we can understand that. I know there might be some of you too that are like, oh God, I'm so bad with the kids. Like, I don't do punishment. And, listen, I get it. There's times when that shit's like, it's fucking difficult. It might feel like it's easier. Just go, fine, have the iPad for another 30 minutes. Just please stop because I'm exhausted, right? I get it. This is no judgment about parenting, but sometimes we can understand the boundaries with kids, right? You can't, be in the house by yourself when you're 4. You cannot, go to a house of a family maybe that you don't know. So I had to enforce some boundaries with a recent babysitter that we have. She is awesome. The boys love her. She's young. She's 19, right? And the boys told me that she had some friends over when she was babysitting. One was like an overnight, and one was one of our regular kind of date nights. And now I didn't ask them about it. They just kind of said, oh yeah, she had 3 friends over. And I was like, she had what? And I flipped. Like, I got fucking pissed. I'm like, you brought 3 people into my home that I don't know that are around my young children? Nope. And, my first inclination would just be like, you know what? You're done. You're fucking fired. Like, this is just ridiculous. Like, it's one of those things where you go, is it not common sense? It's not common sense. But, I'm dealing with a generation of kids, millennials, that are a little bit different. I'm not going to trash on the millennials, but it's just, there's a lot of blurriness that I just grew up in a way different generation. Way different. And so, after I kind of, first I texted her about it and said, hey, the boys shared this with me because they just kind of mentioned it in passing. But what was interesting too is that Tyson knew that it was wrong. Because Tyson's my oldest son. He's 7, almost 7.5. And he tells me everything, which is awesome. Like, I want him to know. He can always tell me the truth. But he also knows, like, it's almost like he can't not tell the truth. Like, he can't lie. Like, he'll do this thing where he's like, I got to tell you something. Like, like it's like something he has to like blurt out. He can't keep it in. And it's beautiful. My son has that, right? That he is just, because we talk so much about telling the truth. And so when he told me this, yeah, she had over 3 friends. And I was like, what? And then he realized it, and he was like, no, she's not in trouble. Don't tell her. And I'm like, no, Tyson, we need to have this discussion. Like, what happened and who were they? And then I texted her to ask about it. And, she tells me kind of like, someone came to drop me off food and they stayed and I didn't feel good. I was like, listen, this is a bunch of fucking bullshit right now. Like, not okay. And then when I asked about the previous week, when it was an overnight date, and my husband and I were at a concert, and she had texted to say like, hey, I've got a friend coming over. She also nannies some kids. Like, is that okay for me to have her come over, hang out with the kids and stuff? And I'm like, sure. I'm thinking like she's a nanny and she's, it's good. Well, now I found out there was actually 2 people there. I'm like, no, this is not the agreement at all. So I got fucking pissed. And I just said, look, I interviewed you. I don't let anybody be around my children. This is not about being a helicopter parent at all. It's about being a conscious parent, understanding that, like, my children are at ages where there's so much input going in, and no, I can't control it all, nor do I want to. But there are certain things I can, which are the people that I allow to be part of my village, right? To care for my children, like, and people that come into my home, like, no, not cool. So I told her that very clearly in a text message. And she apologized a bunch of times. And I just said, I promise you it won't happen again. And I understand how I broke your trust. And I just said, look, I'm going to need a day to think about this. And I'm already texting someone else we have saying, hey, can you do these days? Because I was fucking pissed. Now, this isn't about harping on this one babysitter, but this is to really understand the importance of boundaries. Because then when I kind of gave it a day, I'm like, okay, let me just take a breath. And I'm like, look at, people make mistakes. People make mistakes, right? And I also took a look. I'm like, what are the facts? The facts is that we really like her. Like, before this happened, I had no qualms. She'll unload the dishwasher, even though I don't ask her for those things. When she's with the kids, she's super present. Our boys adore her. Adore her. More than any other sitter that we've ever had. And she's just a sweet, sweet person. She doesn't have any other job. And so she's very available. Just great. Great. So this thing happened. I'm like, am I going to toss somebody aside who has all these other amazing traits and qualities, and yet they've made a mistake? I'm like, I'm going to give her a second chance. So I told her that, right? I said, here's the boundaries. You're not allowed to no one's allowed to be at the house. If you need to have food, you can either you eat the food in our house, I don't care, or bring food with you, but nobody's bringing you food over when you're watching the kids for 4 hours. That's just ridiculous. And I just said, look at it's again, what I just explained to you, where it's the people who are around our children, we allow people to be around our children. You just don't get to be around our children. That's the same for me, by the way. I allow people to be a part of my life. I don't just let anybody be a part of my life at all. But listen, I appreciate, those of you that reach out to me and stuff, but it's getting to a point, because I get so much of that I just simply, I can't keep responding to all of you. I would love to, but I just simply can't. Because I'll burn myself into the ground. And the people that I allow to have that kind of access to me are the ones that are in my coaching programs, right? And they're paying me at a level that's part of it. That's part of it to have that access to me. So outside of the business component, people that have access to me as friends or acquaintances, it's the same thing. And so, I'm teaching my children with this and too, that listen, you don't have to allow everybody into your life. You allow those into your life that really love, support, inspire you, uplift you. Not everybody. And so when I texted her back, this was kind of a whole text conversations over a couple of days, or over about a day and a half. And I just said, listen, here's the nuclear agreements. These are boundaries here. Can you agree to this? With absolute certain, can you agree to this? She said, yes. And thank you. I said, okay, we're good. So I've been very clear on what that boundary now is. Very clear. Very clear. And the thing is this, now I could sit there and stew and maybe not say much and go hey, don't do it again, okay. But listen, we went through and there was a process and some time and some space for me to really get clear on what is the boundary that I really want to communicate to her. This whole thing of common sense does not come to everybody, it's true, but you also can't expect people to read your mind. Maybe for them that was considered Like maybe for her, she thought, having a lot of people around was like good for the kids, right? Or maybe having others that interact. Like, I don't know. I don't really know, what she was kind of thinking at the time. Maybe she's not somebody who would make a clear boundary with her own friends, and I'm teaching her this. Like, that's the bigger thing. When she's like, oh, she dropped me off something, and then she stayed, and she brought 2 friends, and then they came in the house, and I'm thinking like, what? Why don't you just tell them, don't come in the house? Well, it's clear to me that she's not good at making boundaries. So do you see that by me showing her how to set up boundaries, it's not only for the sake of what I want and for my children and who I have that I allow into my life and who I hire and support us with our family and our home, but I'm showing her how to do it. So realize that when you set boundaries, like, it's a win-win. It's not a win-lose. It's not about you being like, you can't do this like the dictator kind of thing. And if I'm going to pay you, that kind of thing, right? It doesn't get you anywhere. Even with your kids, it's a win-win. Now, your kids might not see it that way right now. I get that from my kids. You're so mean. And yeah, I mean, mommy. I'm like, no, buddy. I am not your friend. I'm your mom. It is my job to teach you these things because I'm teaching them boundaries so that they're able to enforce those in their own life when they get to be older or even now, right? My kids are seeing this. Boundaries. It is one of the most important things that you can do. And so here's the thing. Boundaries are usually loosey-goosey if you don't feel that you matter enough, if you don't feel like you're enough, you don't feel like your opinion is enough, and if you don't fully love yourself, you will be the fucking doormat. And so it's going to be at a point in your life that you choose. You choose. Are you going to continue to lie down and be the doormat and be angry, resentful, frustrated, pissed, sad, depressed, and then just get to a point of just being numb to it all? Or are you going to stand up for yourself clearly? Don't lose your shit. Clearly, firmly, let the people in your life know what your boundaries are. And it's going to be rough at first because you know what? If you haven't enforced any kind of boundaries, they're going to be like, whoa, wait a second. But I thought it's just like I get to do whatever the fuck I want to you. I thought that was the game. I thought that was our boundary. No boundaries. Right? That was the agreement. It's like, I get to do what I want, and you just put up with everything. And don't say anything. So here's your more tip for today. I want you to take a look at the top 3 people in your life. It's most likely going to be like your husband and your children. Right? Or maybe it's a really close friend, or someone you work with, or it's a business partner, or it's a family member, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister. The 3 most, like the top people, you define what that is for you in your life, and really take a look. Do you have clear boundaries? Do those people know what's okay and what's not okay? Or is that blurry? So number 1, list, so to open up your journal, list who are the top 3 people in your life. The second thing you're gonna answer is, and it's gonna be a clear yes or no. If you're sitting there trying to think about if it's a yes or a no, it's a no. You can ask yourself this question. Now, question number 2, do I have clear boundaries with these people? And if it's a no, then I want you to write down, what are the boundaries that I want to create? And then have that conversation with them. Have that conversation. It's most likely going to be a face-to-face. And it may not be something that happens in one conversation. It might be something that happens over a couple of conversations. This is one of the most important, one of the most difficult things that you can actually do in your life. And understand, we can actually have like a part 2 to this. Understand, you can also set up boundaries, and then they have to be revisited, right? Because maybe they get broken, or just they don't apply to you anymore, or, something. Boundaries are necessary, sister. If you want to get what you want within your life, you want to create incredible relationships with people that you allow into your life, boundaries are part of it. Knowing what's okay and what's not okay. Think if there were no boundaries, as I'm like just sitting outside my gym waiting for my coach to show up. I just pulled up for boxing. And if you're driving on the road, there wasn't any boundaries. There wasn't any kind of rules as to like, okay, stop sign means this. And, if it's a 4-way stop, this is how it works. Here's the traffic lights. If there were no boundaries, we would all crash into each other. People would be fucking like killing each other all the time. I remember being in Dominican Republic. I did a chiropractic mission trip there Oh gosh, it's about 12 years ago now. It was a while ago. And I remember them saying that there was a hospital there that was just designed for car accidents because the rules of the road are so blurry, like there really aren't really any, that people get in car accidents all the fucking time. So setting boundaries means you're avoiding a lot of these accidents, if you will. Boundaries. Make them happen, sister. Make them happen. So listen, 3 things before we finish up the podcast today. Number 1, if you don't subscribe to the Women Who Want to More newsletter, you need to do that right now. I'm going to send you the More for Action guide and a video training, which is how to start your day in power, as well as 2 exclusive video trainings I had inside a private Facebook group to really learn how to figure out who you are. Remember who you are. To learn how to drop your stories and create new ones. So that's over at drkarenosborn.com/action guide. Number 2, I want you to wear who you are, sister. I created the Women Wanting More store about 4 weeks ago with the intention to be able to wear on the outside what you believe on the inside. And these are reflected in t-shirts and tanks and hoodies, mugs, and beanies of some of the things you hear me say here on the podcast. And it's been so exciting to see a lot of the women just scooping up stuff, posting up on Facebook, for you to really wear who you are. And so that's at shop.womenwantingmore.com. In addition, this is actually something special I'm just putting on here right now, and I will create this within the store. But for those of you who are podcast listeners, when you go to shop.womenwantingmore.com, I want you to get 10% off as my special gift and as a thank you for listening to the podcast. So when you go to the checkout, enter in podcast 10. So podcast, PODCAST, 10, and I'll give you an extra 10% at checking as well as at checkout, as well as free shipping. And the third thing is to make sure to join the Women Wanting More sister. Listen, a lot of you are telling me like, oh, you follow stuff and it's like, you really like it, but you haven't really implemented stuff. This is what the sister is all about. You can be around other women who are like you that want similar things, that want a life of more within their marriage, with their parenting, with their bodies. And right now you get to join the sisterhood for $1 for the first 7 days. $1. That's it. So that's over at drkarenosborn.com/sister. So I'll talk to you in the next episode, sister. A life of more is just one step away from you doing the fucking work every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosborn.com/newsletter.